Hey everyone. As Father Dan mentioned, I'm Ian. I'm graduating. And I'm a major in international business, and next year I will be moving to Hawaii, to the Big Island, to do Teach for America. So just a little bit about me. But about a week ago, I had the difficult privilege of giving my parting words to the men's group, where I met every Monday in Father Mike's room for 4 years that I was here. I spent all day trying to think about what wise words I would want to impart on everyone before leaving. I ended up just tearfully yammering on about how much men's group had meant to me, which I can't guarantee won't happen tonight. But it got me thinking about why we say goodbye. Growing up, it has always been so difficult for me to say goodbye. My dad was in the Army, and so we moved just about every 2 years, and thus every new friendship I made came with an already determined expiration date. It was kind of an unspoken law that you didn't draw out the goodbye so that you minimized the pain you knew was coming all along. So why do we dedicate so much time to something that is so painful? Is it so that we can determine what the biggest mark is that we are leaving behind on USD's campus? I think we can all agree that it's Mark Adams. But honestly, I'm not sure. There's no doubt that goodbyes are hard and painful, but I think that we say our goodbyes in order to pay homage to all the experiences and all the people that have made us who we are. It's like when everyone asks, "How are you feeling about graduating?" Well, it's bittersweet. The fact that I never have to beg someone for a Chegg account password ever again, that's pretty awesome. But the fact that I won't ever get to see Diego the Torero in the SOP while I'm munching down on some of Mickey's pasta, I'm pretty torn up about that. So tonight I have both the sweet pleasure and the bitter burden of sharing my goodbye with you all. I have so much that I could talk about in my 4 years here, that there is no way I could possibly acknowledge everything without giving a Father Gino-length homily. No, Father Mike did not tell me to say that. Instead, I will just try to give you a glimpse into the boundless love I have experienced that makes this place so special. For those of you who know my Spanish-speaking abilities, you would probably be inclined to describe them as woefully inadequate. For example, when I was on the East LA immersion trip, my host parents asked me how I had slept the night before, and I told them, muy calor. To my surprise, the next night there was a portable air conditioning unit in our bedroom. My host sister then informed me that our host parents were not asking me about the weather. Nonetheless, I was convinced by none other than Luke Garrett to go on the Tijuana spring breakthrough of sophomore year. When we got down there, I was shocked by the sight of stray dogs, burning piles of trash, and homes built from any and everything. I don't know what I expected, but to see such a stark difference in the living conditions just 40 minutes from where we are now, it was one of those moments where I was completely removed from myself. Despite the initial shock, we were literally welcomed with open arms by Father Jesse and the families who volunteer regularly at the church where we stayed. After Mass, Vanessa and Elisa, the 2 USD students I was staying with, and I were greeted by a sweet, middle-aged mother, Felix, and her son, Jorge. Vanessa was the only one of us who could speak any Spanish, and Jorge and Felix didn't speak a word of English. They welcomed us into their humble home with 2 bedrooms, 1 working sink, and now a house full of people. The next day, Felix paid for all of us to take the bus and spend the day at the zoo, where we sauntered around, watched performances, gawked at the exotic animals, and even painted little clay piggy banks. Jorge wanted me to paint a minion so that I would remember him, and I still have it. We had spent less than 24 hours together, spoken fewer than 5 words to each other, and yet it felt like family. We smiled, laughed, dined, and sat in silence together, just simply being together. The next day, we walked back to San Francisco to reunite with the rest of the USD group and got ready to head home. After a small fiesta with dancing and soccer, it was time to part with our host families. The dreaded goodbyes were upon us. I was just trying to figure out how to communicate my most sincere thank you for all that Felix and Jorge had done for us. Before I could say anything, with tears in her eyes, Felix came up to me and enveloped me in one of those warm hugs that only a mother knows how to give. She hands me a necklace and says something to me in Spanish. As they are walking away, I ask Vanessa what she had said to me, and she tells me that she'd said, "Thank you for being here, my son." This is the type of love that God is calling us towards in tonight's gospel. Unprovoked, undeserved, and undeniable love towards others. This is a love where we forget ourselves and enter into a fullness of life that brings us closer to each other. This is the love that lives in this chapel. As many of you know, I can be somewhat of a knucklehead. At least that's what my mom calls it. And sophomore year, I proved her right. To make a long story short, 3 days before the end of the spring semester, I got into some trouble with PSAFE, which prevented me from being able to study abroad the next fall in Ireland. Because it was at the very end of the year, I didn't really have much time to fix my plans for the following semester. So basically, I was heading into my junior year with no housing, no classes, and a plane ticket I couldn't use. I remember on the day of my hearing in the Office of Ethical Development and Restorative Practices, shout out, Marie Minnick told me that this wouldn't be the end of the world. But at the time, it was the end of the world to me. I was in panic, and after my hearing was over, I had about 20 minutes to get to my next final. It was going to be so embarrassing when everyone saw me on campus the next semester asking why I wasn't in Ireland. Also, I would have to go home to face my parents, who had given me the opportunity to go to USD and study abroad in the first place. I was a mess. My perfect 4-year plan was quickly crumbling before my eyes. Embarrassment, shame, and guilt became the dominant emotions in my final days of that semester. When I was at my lowest, I was walking with Josh through the Vistas parking lot, where everyone was dumping their unwanted stuff by the garbage bins. As we walked by, Josh looked to the ground and found a little rubber bracelet, and it read, "Trust the process," written on all caps. At first, when he showed it to me, I disregarded it as some lame aphorism that the fraternities and sororities told the people they didn't let in. But then Josh said something to me like, "Dude, that's a crazy sign. I think everything's gonna be okay." That year, I had ignored many of my closest friends, the ones who really cared. But luckily, Josh was with me through it all. If you know Josh, and I know that many of you do, you know that his strength and kindness is unmatched by any. It wouldn't surprise you that he has a daily reminder set on his phone that says, "No complaining, be a good listener, and be compassionate and welcoming." Josh doesn't need a reminder to tell him that, because that is who he is naturally, and that is what he was to me when I needed him most. There was no judgment, there was no false hope. It was just my best friend willing to stick it out with me. That night, there was only one pair of footprints in the sand. The reality is, the drama of our lives, whether big or small, is simply designed to put what we have into perspective. For me, I'm now living with Josh, and because I didn't go abroad that fall, I'm able to be with the girl I fell in love with the moment I saw her in the stairwell of Maher 4 years ago. It's not necessarily that everything happens for a reason, but that sometimes we don't realize what has been right in front of us the whole time. There's no doubt in my mind that I'm the person that I am because of the people I've met here, in this chapel, on this campus, and beyond these borders. That's why it's such an honor for me to share my goodbye with all of you in this very special place. I remember that summer after sophomore year, coming home to my parents and telling them about the Candlelight Mass. I remember telling them that when I was graduating, I wanted to give that speech. I had attended the candlelight mass just a couple of days before the incident with Peace Safe, and I thought to myself how beautiful it would be to commemorate the love I have for USD in its most sacred space. Of course, words will never be able to capture all that this place means to us, but I can only hope to speak as a witness to that love that manifests itself here in all of you. In the past year and a half or so, I've learned how to treasure this love more than I ever have. I've always been a broad generalizer, trying to apply abstract philosophical truths to the entirety of life. My lady friend, as Father Mike likes to call her, on the other hand, has an acute attention to the finer details in life. If you ask her how her day went, she won't just say good or bad. She'll say something like, well, I saw this little baby wearing a hat, and I dug a hole with my roommates, and I had to go to the CZ where I gave Richie a little smacking around. While most of us are stuck in our own heads, Christine is fully present, taking in every subtle beauty. She is so good at just being present that by growing together with her, I have realized that too often we are so concerned with the past and future that we forget how sacred the present moment can be. If we make ourselves present, then heaven is available to us here and now. That is what love allows us to do. Jesus commands us to love one another, because this love frees us from the selfish chains of worrying about our ever intangible past and future. Love is the only thing. It is our God, and it is our lives. It is what you have all given to me, and God knows I will carry it with me always. So maybe saying goodbye is like planting a tree. No matter how far from home we go, the seeds of love planted and nourished here become our roots. We plant them firmly so that we can spread our love into a world that so desperately needs it. Our goodbye is our promise to continue to grow and to continue to love, knowing that our roots will keep us standing when we feel distant from the ones we love. It is the hope that our separation is temporary and that the knowledge that God is with us. So to this place and to all of you, it is my greatest and sincerest honor to say goodbye. Thank you.